You know, everything just works. Your Gmail, YouTube, Google Maps, it all flows together, kind of the backbone of your online day.
Yeah, it's incredibly integrated.
But imagine if that backbone was facing a serious shakeup.
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. There's a real possibility the U.S. Department of Justice might recommend breaking up Alphabet, which is Google's parent company.
Wow.
Yeah, and this isn't just talk. It comes after a federal court actually ruled that Google illegally held onto its monopoly in the search market.
Okay, so this is serious stuff. For our deep dive today, we've got quite a range of sources. We're looking at news from places like Bloomberg Law News, the Times of India, the National, Thurrott.com for the tech side, too.
And also some analysis from the Independent Women's Forum, Knowledge at Wharton. We've even got the EU perspective on their Digital Markets Act.
Right, plus a really interesting Reddit thread, you know, the user angle on why people see Google as a monopoly, and some history on antitrust from History Oasis, and legal analysis from the University of Miami Law Review.
So a broad picture.
Exactly. And our goal, really, is to cut through all that and figure out what could a Google breakup actually mean for you, looking at the arguments for it, but also, crucially, the potential problems.
So the core of the case, the thing the court agreed on, was that Google didn't just win the search engine game fair and square. They actively and illegally kept their monopoly going.
How did they do that?
Well, mostly through these exclusive deals, making Google the default search engine, the one that pops up automatically, on loads of devices and browsers, basically locking out competitors.
Oh, we're talking serious money for these deals, right? I saw some figures.
Oh, yeah. Big money. One source mentioned Google paying Apple like $12 billion a year just to be the default on iPhones.
Go a billion.
And another even suggested it might be closer to $20 billion.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just Apple. Mozilla, Firefox, other device makers too. It really looks like a deliberate strategy.
Paying to stay on top.
Pretty much. So, based on that court ruling, the DOJ is now weighing its options. And the biggest one, the headline grabber, is thinking about actually breaking up Alphabet.
That sounds huge. A structural remedy, is that the term?
That's the one. It means fundamentally changing the company's structure, its ownership, how it operates.
But that's not the only option on the table, is it? Are there less drastic things they're considering?
Oh, definitely. A full breakup is like the most extreme end. They're also looking at just banning those big default payment deals.
Okay, stopping the payments.
Right, and maybe forcing Google to share some of its search data, perhaps even its algorithms with rivals. The idea there is to make it easier for new search engines to actually compete, lower the barrier to entry.
Sharing algorithms, that sounds tricky.
It is. There's also talk about making Google's massive web index, its map of the internet and the algorithms it uses to rank pages available to others. And interestingly, there's another idea, letting websites choose not to have their content used by Google's AI tools. Things like their large language models, the AI that generates text.
So websites could opt out of being summarized or used by Google's AI.
Potentially, yeah. That's one of the proposals.
And you mentioned earlier, maybe even breaking off parts like Chrome or Android.
Yeah, that's also been floated in some of the more radical proposals, forcing Google to sell off the Chrome browser or the Android platform.
Why those specifically?
The argument is that Google uses its dominance in browsers and mobile operating systems to push its own search engine unfairly. You know how search is built right into Android? It creates this loop where one reinforces the other.
Right. It feels like totally new ground.
Yeah.
But you mentioned historical sources. This kind of thing has happened before, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's crucial to remember that. History Oasis pointed out cases like the breakup of American Tobacco way back when, which, ironically, created some of the big tobacco companies we know now. Then there was the Paramount Pictures case. In the 40s, they had to sell their movie theaters to open up competition.
Oh, okay.
And maybe more relevant, the big U.S. versus Microsoft case from the late 90s, early 2000s. That one really showed how complex and long these tech antitrust battles can be. Getting remedies implemented isn't easy.
Yeah, I remember that dragging on.
Exactly. So these past examples show that breaking up a giant company is, well, it's complicated. Lots of legal fights, sometimes unexpected results.
Okay, so let's get into the arguments for doing this. Why do proponents think breaking up Google is the way to go? What are they hoping to achieve?
The main hope is really about competition. The idea is that if you dismantle Google's current structure, it could spark a new wave of competition in the search market.
Meaning more search engines popping up.
Yeah, exactly. New players, maybe different kinds of search engines. You might see smaller companies focusing on specific things like, say, enhanced privacy features or maybe really specialized search for certain topics that Google doesn't cover as well.
So potentially more choice for us. And maybe better services tailored to what we need.
That's the goal. More competition usually pushes companies to innovate, right?
Yep.
To offer something better or different to win users over. We saw parallels in the EU's Digital Markets Act, the DMA.
Ah, yes, the EU angle.
Their goal is also fairer digital markets. They think that leads to more and better services, makes it easier for you to switch providers, maybe gives you more direct access, and possibly fairer prices too.
And how does the DMA try to achieve that?
Well, it has rules against things like self-preferencing, where a big platform unfairly promotes its own stuff.
Like Google maybe favoring YouTube results.
Could be an example, yeah. The DMA also wants to make it easier to uninstall preloaded apps and stop platforms blocking businesses from talking to their customers elsewhere.
That Reddit thread you mentioned earlier really seemed to capture the user frustration side of things.
It did. There was a strong sense that Google being the default everywhere just kills off any real chance for alternatives to grow. Like, why bother building a new search engine if you can't get anyone to see it?
Right. And some people there even thought the sheer amount Google pays Apple actually stops Apple from even thinking about making its own search engine.
Yeah, that was an interesting point. The money involved is so huge, maybe it removes the incentive for a potential competitor like Apple. And beyond just search, that thread also brought up worries about Google's control over the whole ad tech system, the technology behind online ads.
Right. The ad market is another whole area.
Yeah, that control gives them immense power there, too.
Okay, but let's flip the coin. There must be worries about what happens if they do break Google up, especially for us, the users who rely on all those connected services.
Right.
What are the potential downsides?
Yeah, this is the big counter-argument. The primary worry is fragmentation.
Fragmentation, meaning
breaking up that smooth connection between services like Gmail, Maps, Drive, YouTube, all the things we use that currently talk to each other seamlessly.
Okay.
If you disrupt that integration, just doing everyday online stuff could get a lot clunkier or more frustrating. Imagine Maps not easily pulling info from search or Drive and Gmail not working together so well.
Yeah, that seamlessness.
Yeah.
You kind of expect it now. Losing that would feel like a step backward.
Definitely. And then there are worries specifically about spinning off things like Chrome or Android. Some experts worry that could actually, break them or at least make them less stable.
Break them? How?
Well, it could potentially lead to higher costs for phones and laptops, maybe mess with security updates, make patching bugs harder and slower if the teams are split up.
The security's a big one. And what about innovation? Google pumps out new stuff pretty fast. Would a breakup slow that down?
That's another concern. A fragmented Google, split into smaller pieces, might just not have the same resources or focus for R&D. It could slow down new tech and features.
Right.
Someone pointed to how fast Google came up with Bard to compete with ChatGPT as an example of their current muscle. Would smaller Googles be able to react like that? Maybe not.
And what about cost? We get a lot of this stuff for free now, right? In exchange for our data, basically.
That could change, too. If you have smaller search engines trying to compete, maybe they can't rely solely on ad revenue like Google does now. So
It's subscription fees, paying for features.
It's a possibility. They might have to explore different ways to make money, which could mean users end up paying directly for things that are currently free.
And privacy. You mentioned new search engines might focus on privacy, but could a breakup also increase privacy risks?
It's a double-edged sword. If Google is forced to share user data with competitors, well, are those competitors going to be as careful with it?
Good point.
Do they have the same security setup? Google CEO Sundar Pichai was strongly against forced data sharing. He basically called it giving away their secrets, risking R&D, and user privacy.
He argued rivals could reverse engineer their tech.
Yeah, that was his concern, that competitors could basically copy their technology if they had access to that kind of data.
So lots of potential unintended consequences. The Independent Women's Forum analysis also flagged worries about prices going up for users, maybe losing features we like, or even data security taking a hit.
Exactly. And the folks at Knowledge at Wharton put it pretty bluntly. They said breaking up Google search could be a huge scale or operational disaster.
Oof.
And they also made the point that just swapping one big monopoly for several smaller ones doesn't necessarily fix the core problem. It could just create new issues.
Okay, so If a full breakup is potentially messy and risky, are there other, less drastic ways to fix the problems the court identified? Alternative remedies.
Yes, absolutely. And many experts lean toward these more targeted approaches, things like injunctions.
Injunctions, like court orders.
Exactly. Court orders telling Google what they can and cannot do. They can be much more precise than a massive breakup, targeting specific behaviors seen as anti-competitive.
Like what kind of behaviors?
Well, they could definitely include banning those exclusive default deals we talked about.
Okay, stop the payments.
Right. Also, making it easier for users to take their data with them, enhancing data portability. That gives you more power to switch services.
That sounds useful.
And another idea is requiring choice screens. When you set up a new phone or browser, you'd get a clear menu asking you to pick your preferred search engine, rather than Google just being the automatic default.
Forcing a choice up front.
Yeah. And that idea of compelled data sharing, while controversial, is still sometimes mentioned as a potential creative remedy by some experts, even with Google's strong objections.
It really feels like this whole case goes way beyond just Google, doesn't it? It touches on huge questions about big tech power.
Absolutely. This isn't just a legal squabble, it's part of this massive, ongoing, global discussion about how much power these huge corporations should have, how we protect consumers, and how we keep innovation alive.
And there's that U.S.-China tech race angle too, right?
Yeah, that's in the background too. Some worry that weakening a major U.S. tech player like Google could hurt America's edge in key areas like AI, especially with intense competition from China. Google itself has definitely brought this up. And don't forget, the DOJ has another big antitrust case against Google right now, focused specifically on their ad tech business. So the regulatory spotlight is definitely on them from multiple angles.
Wow. Okay, so trying to wrap our heads around all this, what's the main takeaway for listeners trying to make sense of it all?
I think the core thing is this tension, this trade-off. On one side, you have the desire for more competition, potentially leading to more innovation, more choice for you.
Like the benefits.
But on the other side, you have the very real risk of disrupting services that millions, probably billions of people rely on every single day, risking fragmentation, maybe slower progress, maybe even hitting privacy or costs. There's just no simple, easy answer here.
And we don't actually know what's going to happen yet, do we? This isn't decided.
Not at all. The court found Google liable for maintaining a monopoly, yes. But what the fix will be the remedy that's still up to the judge, Judge Mehta. He's aiming to decide by around August 2025.
August 2025. Okay.
But even then, whatever he decides, you can bet Google will likely appeal. So the final outcome, that could still be years away. The story is far from over.
Right. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about how integrated Google is in your own day-to-day, that seamless flow. What potential upside from a breakup, more choice, maybe better privacy down the line would actually be worth risking that smooth experience? Would it be enough to outweigh the disruption?
Or is the better path maybe those more targeted rules, focusing on specific behaviors like the default deals or data portability, instead of the massive structural change of a breakup?
It's definitely something to think about, a really complex issue with huge potential impacts for all of us online.